In 1930, a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer named Joe LaBelle snowshoed into a remote fishing village on the shore of Anjikuni Lake. The fires were still burning. The food was still cooking. But every single person was gone. Over 30 people. An entire community. No footprints leading out. No sign of panic. No bodies. No explanation. And when the Canadian government got involved, they told everyone to stop asking questions. This is the Anjikuni Lake vanishing. And to this day, not a single credible explanation has ever been officially given. But here is what the official reports left out. And I promise you, when you hear it, you will understand why. Okay. So to understand what happened at Anjikuni, you need to picture this place. Northern Canada, 1930. This is not a place where people visit. This is not a place people stumble across. You have to go out of your way to get here. The Ihalmiut people, the local Inuit community, had fished these waters for generations. Anjikuni Lake was home. It was safe. It was known. Joe LaBelle had visited this same village before. He knew these people. He knew their faces. He knew their dogs. So when he snowshoed in that November evening and the village looked normal from a distance, he thought nothing of it. The huts were standing. Smoke was rising from the fires. The boats were on the shore. All normal. Everything looked exactly as it should. And then he got close enough to see inside the first hut. Food. On the fire. Still bubbling. A half-eaten meal sitting on a stone slab untouched. He called out. Nothing. He went to the next hut. Then the next. And the next. Every single fire was burning. Every single hut was set up as if the people had just stepped out. As if they had walked away from a meal mid-bite. Now here is the thing that does not make sense. And I need you to really think about this with me. This is the Canadian Arctic. In November. At night, the temperature can hit -30, -40 degrees. People do not just step outside on a whim. You do not leave your fire. You do not leave your food. You do not leave your shelter. Not in those conditions. Unless something happened that was more terrifying than freezing to death. LaBelle searched until he could not search anymore. And then he did the only thing left to do. He sent a telegram to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And here is where the story gets genuinely strange. The RCMP arrived and confirmed everything LaBelle had reported. A community of over 30 people vanished. But the more they looked, the stranger it got. First detail. The rifles. Every hunting rifle in the village, the primary survival tool in that environment, had been left behind. Propped against the walls. Loaded. And used. Nobody leaves their rifle. Not here. Not these people. The rifle is the difference between eating and starving. Between living and dying. You do not walk away from your rifle. Second detail. The graves. The village cemetery, where generations of Ihalmiut ancestors were buried, had been disturbed. Not vandalized. Not robbed. The graves had been opened from above. The bodies removed. Someone, or something, had dug up the ancestors and taken them. Think about what it takes to do that in frozen ground in November in the dark without making enough noise to wake a village. Third detail. The dogs. Sled dogs in the Arctic are not pets. They are working animals. They are tethered, controlled, kept close. They are everything in this environment. The investigators found the dogs tied to their posts. Still tethered. Still there. Dead. Starved to death. The dogs had starved. Which means the village had been empty, not for hours. 4 days. Possibly weeks. But the fires were still burning. And the food was still warm. That is physically impossible. And yet every investigator who went to that scene reported the same thing. Here is what is important to understand. The Anjikuni case was reported in newspapers across Canada and the United States. It was not a rumor. It was not a legend. The Winnipeg Evening Tribune. The Halifax Herald. Multiple major papers ran the story in November and December 1930. And then, almost overnight, the government asked the newspapers to stop. The official position became, it probably never happened. The RCMP closed the case. The village was never mentioned in an official report again. Now, over the years, people have offered explanations. Let me walk you through them. Because this is where it gets really interesting. Theory 1. Mass migration. Maybe the community simply decided to relocate and packed up fast. This is the government's preferred story. Problem: the rifles, the dogs, the burning fires, the open graves. You do not migrate and leave your survival tools, your starving dogs, and your ancestors' bodies behind. That theory does not hold up for 30 seconds. Theory 2. Famine. The community was dying and walked out into the cold in a kind of collective despair. Problem: the food, still cooking. A starving community does not leave a warm meal on the fire. Theory 3. And this is the one that the academic community has barely touched, and I think it is the most interesting. There is documented history of extreme psychological phenomena in Arctic isolation communities, a condition sometimes called Pibloktok or Arctic hysteria. It is a real documented phenomenon. It causes sudden, inexplicable behavior, including people running into the cold, removing their clothing, acting in ways that seem completely irrational. Episodes can last minutes. But mass episodes, triggered by environmental or social factors, have been recorded across multiple individuals simultaneously. Now here is what nobody has connected before. In 2003, a study published in the journal Arctic examined the relationship between selenium deficiency, extremely common in Arctic winter diets, and mass psychological episodes in isolated northern communities. Selenium deficiency at extreme levels can cause collective anxiety responses, paranoid episodes, sudden irrational group flight behavior. The Ihalmiut diet in late autumn would have been almost entirely fish, a diet that, in the specific conditions of Anjikuni Lake in 1930, could have produced severe selenium depletion in an entire community simultaneously. Which means that the most terrifying possibility, and the one that fits the evidence best, is this. These people did not encounter something that came for them. They were already suffering from something that made them run from nothing, into the dark, into the cold, with no weapons, no dogs, no reason, and they never came back. The Angikuni Lake vanishing is one of those cases that the more you dig, the less satisfying the answers become. The government says it probably never happened. But 30 journalists, 2 investigators, and 1 very shaken police officer say it did. And until those graves are reopened, until those records are declassified, we will never know for certain what happened to the Ihalmiut people of Anjikuni Lake. If this kind of story keeps you up at night the same way it keeps me up, hit subscribe. Because I have got 10 more cases that are somehow even stranger than this one. Leave me a comment. Tell me, what do you think really happened? Because I genuinely want to know.